How about them Seahawks? What is going on, everybody? I know it is not our usual time. It is 5:30 here on the East Coast on the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you. And as always, joined alongside my co-host, Gavin Tony. Thank you, everybody. Again, Gavin, thank you to you as well for being flexible for our timing today. Being in school the full day and having some other things after school, it's tough. I'm hearing some rumors, some speculation. We are returning to virtual for a little while, so we'll have to see how that all plays out. But, Gavin, first of all, how are you doing on this fine Friday evening?
I'm doing good, Zach. I had a long day today. School at home, it gets boring after a while, and not in like a bad way, but Zach, I sat in Zoom classes for I want to say a total of 4 hours today. It's tough sitting in front of a screen. I might need glasses at the end of the year. We don't know, but Zach, I'm great. It's the weekend. It's Friday. It's Friday night. So how about you? How you doing?
I'm doing good. We had an exciting night of football last night. Not too big of a surprise from the turnout. It was a really competitive game. It was close. With that being said, free agency started today. We have a lot going on over the weekend. We got NFL games. We got to get our picks in as well. But let's get right into it, Gavin. We'll start off with a recap of Thursday Night Football. Russell Wilson looked great last night, Gavin. You sent me a text during the game. Was it too late for Russ to get into the MVP conversation? And I said, no, it's not, but he has to be perfect the rest of the way. And frankly, last night was pretty damn close to perfect. Great game for him. DK Metcalf had another bounce back game. Carlos Hyde really being productive in that backfield for them with Chris Carson still out with an injury. When the run game is healthy, the Seahawks are a great team. It was the same story last year as it is this year. They're not yet necessarily healthy, but they have backs who are veterans and are experienced in a guy like Carlos Hyde. And look what happened last night. And how about that defense really stepping up last night? The Cardinals are no scrubs. This is a phenomenal game for both teams, honestly, because the Cardinals put some offense together. They were pretty key at some points. They didn't let Russell light it up the way he did the first time they played. But at the same time, that Seattle defense clutched up big when they had to towards the end of the game. And you had a guy like DeAndre Hopkins who you kept contained. You had a guy like Larry Fitzgerald and a guy like Christian Kirk who were contained. And a guy like Kyler Murray who's been on fire who was contained. Kenyon Drake in the second week back for them. They're a good team, no doubt in my mind. But the Seahawks put down last night who really rules the West.
Well, Zach, I don't disagree with you. The Seahawks defense has been on fire for the past couple of weeks now. We've seen it versus Buffalo, and then you go out last week versus the Rams, and you get torched defensively. But Zach, they stopped the run game of the Cardinals, which has kind of been the smooth sailing part for Kyler Murray that opens up the pass. They only had 57 rushing yards last night. Zach, at one point, this game was winnable for the Cardinals, but
They had the game-winning drive. They were driving down the field.
You got to talk about penalties. You got to talk about careless penalties that costed them either positive yards or gave up first downs. I go back to the fight with DK Metcalf and Drake Kirkpatrick. That was, I want to say, it was a third down or maybe
it was a play where they did not have a first down, and that gave them the first down.
They gave him first down, which ultimately I want to say ended up in points. And then later in the game where Kyler Murray's back in his own end zone almost, and you get a holding call which wipes off a first down, which you ended up punting the ball. So the lack of discipline from Cliff Kingsbury crew last night was oddly shocking to me because they're normally well disciplined to a point where they get penalty sack, but from a non-disciplined point, last night didn't look at that well. A lot of holding calls and a little bit of taunting as well.
Yeah, and on top of all of that, I mean, you can't do that against a team like Seattle. But let's turn it over. Let's talk about the Seahawks. Again, I touched on the run game. But, Gavin, the defense last night did look better. Jamal Adams is still struggling to fit in there. Giving away 2 first-round picks, we know how that rolls. The secondary has good pieces to it. It just hasn't been able to go together. But 21 points to a team like Arizona, who's going to probably go on to the playoffs this year. They're currently, 5-4, I believe, or 6-4. They were 6-3 going into last night. 6-4. They're a good team. They have beaten a lot of good teams this year and have been very competitive with a lot of good teams. And so, back to Seattle. How impressed were you with that defense last night, especially in the clutch?
I was impressed with them because this is a defense that goes against the Rams and gives up points. That goes against the Bills and gives up points. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. They're not as bad as the Dallas Cowboys defense, but they were arguably, I don't want to say in the same conversation, but
they were up there. They were up there for sure.
They were up there. They're up there. And then for you to get the game-clinching sack as well on Kyler Murray last night, That just goes to show that this defense is there. Remember, Jamal Adams is playing banged up this whole year. He has not played a healthy game since I want to say
If
week.
Pro Football Focus is almost near the bottom. Do you think it's because of his injury,
Exactly.
or is he having a bad year? Is the scheming not working for him? You gave away 2 first-round picks, and you gave away a very promising young corner safety in that deal.
I mean, Jamal Adams is arguably the best strong safety in the NFL. Zach, we know there's a guy in LA and named Derwin James that's injured right now, but could put a nice
Yeah, Bates in Cincinnati, who's been on his way up.
base in Cincinnati as well. But Zach, when I look at Jamal Adams, it has to be his injuries. We know how Jamal Adams is. He kind of carried the Jets defense a lot in his first couple years there. So it has to be an injury for me. And we know how great the Seahawks defense has been over the years with the Legion of Boom and then Bobby Wagner now being the best middle linebacker in the league, who, by the way, has kind of took a step back this year. You could also we always point the finger at Jamal Adams and say, well, his woes, but you gotta look at
Yes, the linebacking core has been a little bit less than what
you
it
gotta look at the
can
pass
be.
rushing as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you had Jadeveon Clowney last year, who was somewhat efficient. They wanted to bring him back, but the deal, they could not make it work. Here's one more question I have on this topic. We know the New York Jets are going to be tanking again this year and rebuilding, which means very likely Greg Williams will be out of a job again. Do you think that Seattle should take a look at him and pair him up with Jamal Adams?
If the reports were true, whether Jamal Adams had a problem with Adam Gase or the defensive coordinator, look, Zach.
Because that's going to be the question. Look, Greg Williams is very respected in this league as a defensive guy. He is definitely had his issues with the bounties that have been going on behind the scenes. There have been some concerns with it. Odell Beckham has publicly spoken about his hatred towards Greg Williams, but it doesn't mean that he's not a great defensive mind. And pairing him up with the guy who made him very successful, I'd say, in New York, in Jamal Adams. Now, if Jamal Adams had a problem with him, sure as heck, we know that's not going to work. But if it wasn't him, if it was Adam Gase, which of course it would not be a surprise if it was, and there were some mental problems, unfortunately, Adams has been going through, and that's how bad of an organization. That's no joke. I mean, the Jets organization, it's a miserable place when you're there, and unfortunately, some guys are feeling it mentally. Logistically speaking, he's who helped Jamal Adams be successful. He's who knows how to use Jamal Adams. So maybe they could look into that in the offseason if Greg Williams goes separate ways with the New York Jets.
Well, Zach, you gotta remember too, whether it was Adam Gase or Greg Williams or both of them combined, he still had to listen to one of them. And if the problem was, remember, Greg Williams is the defensive coordinator, Adam Gase is the head guy or the head goon or whatever you want to call him. Zach, I know we're not fond of him on the show, but if you're Seattle, you give Greg Williams a look, but I don't think you give him a call because, yes, he might be well respected. Remember, Zach, his defense is giving up a lot of points as well.
Well, I wouldn't say they had that much talent. That's why I think
talent is fair. Talent is fair to say.
In Cleveland, he had a good defense when he was Cleveland's interim head coach. But here's, I mean, of course, that's going to be the big issue is what's going to happen in the offseason because for some reason Adam Gase might find himself another job. But we'll continue to cover that. They'll probably downgrade him to an offensive coordinator on another team. Maybe there are guys who are better at offensive coordinator, just can't take that next step to be a head coach.
Adam Gase doesn't deserve another job, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry.
No, if you suck at your job, you really should not get another one. Coming up after this, an interesting story breaking out of the Big Easy. Our first takes after this. We are now offering a new product on our Teespring. Wear a mask in public. We are now supporting a custom designed mask with our logo on it. Purchase it today, and 10% goes to a foundation of our viewers' choice. It offers a full nose and mouth coverage, single-sided print, includes 2 2-inch elastic ear loops, non-medical grade product, and finally, $1 from every mask sale is donated to a nonprofit to feed children in need. Enjoy today's episode. As we pointed out, an interesting move today made in New Orleans, being fast on the fantasy waiver wire. Fantasy football app actually crashed today. And that big story is that Taysom Hill right now is looking like he's going to be the starting quarterback. I'm trying to read into some things. There are possibilities of dual quarterback backfield, so I would not take out the idea that Winston wouldn't be dropping back for a few passes a game. It's possible that it could be a quarterback by committee. I think that people are looking at this like Taysom Hill is going to be the definitive starter and Winston's going to be a definitive backup. I think there is still going to be a combination. But Gavin, I do want to get some of your just first thoughts on that. I mean, because it looks like this was a decision made based on who practiced better this week, or at least that was the reason given. So what are some of your first thoughts on hearing this news?
Zach, I know Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions last year. And Zach, I know we did a little project in class where it should have been even more than that. But that's besides the point. You're going to take a guy in Taysom Hill who's only through 205 career yards in total. All right, Jameis Winston has double that, triple that, most likely. Zach, we said it best. Give Jameis Winston a nice offensive line. He has a great running back there. He has a nice offensive line. He has a piece of wide receiver. He can be a game manager at best. Tell him, hey, don't turn over the ball. You got these guys you utilize. Alvin Kamara is your best friend in the backfield. Make sure you don't turn over the ball. All right. And the Saints throw short passes. All right. That's why Michael Thomas has his big contract for doing 5 yard routes and every now and then getting a big play. The reason why Jameis Winston threw a lot of interceptions last year was one, it felt like he was forcing a lot of the ball down the field a lot. Jameis Winston had 5 touchdowns one day and five interceptions the next day. I do not like this move at all. But this is going to go to this shows, ladies and gentlemen, that whose team really is. I thought Teddy Bridgewater should have been the guy there after Drew Brees retired. All right, I thought that Jameis Winston, but when Teddy Bridgewater goes and leaves, and yes,
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do like Bridgewater's decision to leave. That opportunity gave him the contract he has in Carolina. I would say this though, and this is going to be a big thing. You're coming off of leading the league in turnovers. All right, you were the first overall pick. You did not live up to expectations. You had a few coaches. A team like New Orleans takes a chance on you to develop you. Maybe they're not comfortable thrusting him in yet, but the bottom line is there's two things I do want to point out here. Number one,
it's going to take some Falcons.
It's going to take some time. When you're on a contender, it's going to take some time for the guy who like Taysom Hill's been there for a few years. And my second point is the financial side. You're paying him $21 million a year. So unfortunately, there's going to be some pressure there. But I think time will tell, Gavin. I will say this, and here's the beauty of the sport from what I see. Winston's committed to that team and he's the backup quarterback. He's learning. He's seeing what happens. He has not been a healthy scratch this year when they do have 3 quarterbacks dressed a week. If Taysom Hill struggles, Winston better get in, or I'm going to be calling for otherwise, because I'm not going to sit here and say Jameis Winston is entitled to another chance. I don't think anybody is entitled to another chance in the league. He's gotten this opportunity. We've seen it with a lot of other guys like Teddy Bridgewater. Not another opportunity, flourishes. Let's see what Jameis Winston can do. I think that they feel the pressure. Like, okay, we're a contender. We've had Taysom Hill here for a few years. We'd be more comfortable plugging him in. If Winston was here for 3 or 4 years, I think it'd be a different story. But again, at the end of the day, Winston, if I'm you, dude, props to you for sticking with it. You're staying in the league. It's not an easy place to be. I'd sit back. I'd work my butt off. I would give 100% every day. And when the opportunity comes, get in there and fulfill it the same way he did this past week against their opponent last week.
I just don't believe Taysom Hill has enough we seen him off the ball not as a quarterback. We seen him catch the ball. We seen him run the ball. He's what
they must see something in practice that we don't know.
There must be something in practice that we don't see, Zach, because we're not there. But Zach, Jameis Winston, yes, he led the league in turnovers, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I know I did stats on Jameis Winston. He should have more turnovers than what it was. But at the bottom line is this. If you give the tools for Jameis Winston to succeed and simplify the offense like we talk about for Carson Wentz, you said Jameis Winston game manager at best. You give the ball Alvin Kamara majority of the time. That's what they did last week. That's what he did. He didn't have 100 yards passing last week. He had 63 yards passing, but he was 6 for 10. Alvin Kamara had 3 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara is going to be the key, but the reason why I'm pushing for Jameis Winston this week is it's the Falcons. It's the Falcons. You're supposed to win this game regardless of Taysom Hill or James Winston. It's the Falcons. They're going to give up points to you no matter what. Their defense is not all that, even though their interim head coach has done a fantastic job of turning the ship around, and I think he deserves a look at the head coaching job there for next year. But, Zach, give Jameis Winston a chance. That's the reason why we brought him in for. We thought Jameis Winston was going to be the successor of Drew Brees when it was all said and done. I know Taysom Hill has been there for longer, but I just can't trust a guy that only has 206 yards as a career passing yard. I am
shocked that he does have that many. I do have to be honest with you. Look, we'll see how it plays out.
This year is his most years of passing. It's 86 out of all years. This is his most passing yards already.
And he did have that one great throw against the Vikings last year in the playoffs. Unfortunately, it would come down to losing them the game, but we'll have to see how it plays out again. Time will tell. Did Sean Payton if Taysom Hill gets in there and lights it up, I don't think we can sit on here and say that Winston should be in. If he goes in there and struggles, we can come on here. We can discuss otherwise.
But if Taysom Hill comes in and does what I ultimately expect him to do, which is not much, and try to, Lamar Jackson this Sunday, but Zach, I think we're gonna come in here and say we need James Winston here. I hope this is not another situation where it is in Washington where they pulled Dwayne Haskins too quick and they didn't give him a chance. And oh, this is another
I mean,
situation.
I would say the Saints organization is more stable than Washington is. Again,
That's
respect to
fair
all
to
the
say.
there.
That's fair to say.
There are a
I
lot of
mean,
moving pieces this year in Washington. Again, like we don't want to see something like a premature pull. I'm not sure what the decision was behind this, but it looks like he had a really good week of practice, and I guess we'll have to listen to their words until we see what happens on the field.
you
But
can't
I'm not.
disrespect him.
I do expect Winston still to get 10% of the snaps or so. It wouldn't shock me. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
It's also Taysom Hill's durability. He takes a lot of hits during the game, a lot.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it rolls. Again, $21 million. It's hard to not feel a pressure there. But let's get into it, Gavin. It is Friday, so it is our time to do picks again. We did yesterday our picks between the Seahawks and the Cardinals, and today we'll do the picks for the rest of the week. And starting off with a rematch from a couple years ago, the Jaguars host the Steelers. Do the Steelers continue to get their revenge, or do you think that this is a game that they could lose?
This has upset written all over it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not fond of the Steelers, and here's why. The teams that have beaten up on this year, who are they? What is one notable team? Baltimore? You could say Houston if this was Houston with the Deshaun with Hopkins.
Tennessee.
Tennessee, that was okay. That's another notable win, but they barely.
I'd say absolutely destroying Cleveland is a statement.
But Zach, remember they barely won these games. They're getting outscaped.
Well,
Baltimore.
they didn't barely win the Browns game. They crushed the
Well,
Browns.
no, that game they came out and they dominated. But Zach, going back to Baltimore, right? Yes, Big Ben was held to what? No points in the first half. Then he comes out, Lamar Jackson turns over the ball. Yes, the Steelers did have points, but it was defensively. They got pick six early.
Well, are you saying the offense is overrated or the team? Because it doesn't
The
matter.
offense, their defense is legit, Zach. I
Well,
can't.
their defense wins championships then, so I don't think that's a
But
valid argument
but
for
their
that
offense,
perspective. But I
Zach,
do
it's
think
the offense. It's the offense that's the look. Every week we see Big Ben tap into his old stuff, where it's looking a little sluggish and not looking good. I know last week was Brown. I mean, it's Bengals. What do you expect?
Bengals have had some competitive games this year. They tied the Eagles for God's sake. I think that being able to go out there and put up a statement the way that they did, it's about the whole team. If you want to sit here and call the offense possibly overrated, that's fine. But the defense itself is doing a really good
I
job.
can't.
And Big
I
Ben
can't call the
is
defense.
definitely in the running for comeback player of the year right now.
I can't call the defense overrated, Zach, because they come out every week and they do their job.
And Mike Tomlin's doing a hell of a job there in
He's
Pittsburgh.
doing a hell of a job. Coach of the year, hands down.
Him and Flores, in my opinion, are the top two right now.
And maybe Stefanski. All depends on how that ends up.
Yeah, if they finish year 10-6 or something like that, then we can see how that rolls out. But let's continue with it. Gavin taking Jacksonville. I will take Pittsburgh. The Detroit Lions against the Carolina Panthers. It's going to be a close one, but I am going to go with the Detroit Lions this week. I think Bridgewater is going to be out, correct? And McCaffrey is also out.
There's no Bridgewater. There's no McCaffrey. I do like DJ Moore, but who's going to get them the ball? I don't even know who the backup quarterback is. Give me the Lions, Zach. I'm rolling with you this week.
I think it's Will Greer, the former West Virginia quarterback.
That's right. Well, guess what? Give me the Lions this week anyway.
All right, Patriots, Texans in Houston. Gavin?
This once again is one of these games where you don't know what Patriots team you're gonna get. We can get the Patriots team from last week where they look good offensively and defensively, or you can get the Patriots team from
The first half of the Jets game.
first half of the Jets game. I'm gonna side with Cam Newton and the Patriots this week. I don't think the Jets first half team shows up.
And the next game, the Tennessee Titans and Ravens. Again, another revenge game, Gavin. Who are you taking?
Taking Baltimore in this one. They're mad. They're not gonna let Derrick Henry run all over them. Fun fact, Zach. Derrick Henry has not looked as effective this year as he did last year. Maybe a little sluggish. And Ryan Tannehill is turning the ball over just a little bit more than he did last year.
I'm gonna go with Tennessee. I think it's gonna be a squeaker. It's gonna be a game-winning field goal at the end by Steven Gostkowski. He's gonna get his revenge from that miss against Pittsburgh. But it's gonna be a close game. It might be low scoring, but I mean it's gonna be about containing Lamar Jackson. If they can do that successfully, I think they win that game. But you do make a lot of points, Gavin. The Ravens are mad right now. We'll have to see how that plays out. Let's go to our hometown Philadelphia Eagles as they travel to Cleveland to play the Cleveland Browns. Gavin, who are you taking in this one?
This is difficult, Zach, because we know what it's going to be like on Sunday. The Cleveland Browns are going to run the ball down our throats. The key to beat the Cleveland Browns is to make Baker Mayfield pass. But we can't stop the run, nor can we stop a pass. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns this week, even though there's no Myles Garrett.
I'm going to go with Cleveland as well. Kevin Stefanski has faced the Eagles a couple of times in his past and has a lot of success running the ball against them, even when we had a better run defense. I don't trust it right now. I think the offense does actually show up and do a good job, but I think the defense loses this one for us. I'm going to say it's going to be 30-27 or 30-24. I'm going to go with Cleveland.
If the Eagles can get off to a great start and kind of make Baker Mayfield pass,
You got to be up by 2 or 3 scores, so your defense needs to
gotta be
show
up by
up.
two. Yeah, because when they start running the ball, it's over. Got two great dynamic.
Nick Chubb best backfield in the NFL. Coming up next, we touched on this game earlier. New Orleans Saints play host to the Falcons. Gavin, who are you taking in this one?
I'm gonna take the Falcons on this one. I'm not sold on Taysom Hill at all, but I'm gonna roll with the Falcons. I think Matty Ice is gonna get the job done.
I think the defense for New Orleans does force at least a turnover or two, which is going to be big. Again, I'm not sure what the snap distribution is going to be between the two quarterbacks. Again, I do think Winston's going to get more time than people think. Very close, but I'm going to go with New Orleans at home. Next game here is the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to the Washington football team. Chase Young versus Joe Burrow, the battle of the top 2 overall picks in the draft last year. Gavin, who are you taking in this one?
I'm gonna take Joe Burrow. He got stomped last week by the best defense in the league. Joe Burrow is a really underrated quarterback in my eyes because even though it's what we say about Joe Herbert, we say the same thing about Herbert. The record does not reflect the play. Joe Burrow versus the Cleveland Browns, the first go around, he was able to push the ball and go pound for pound. And the same thing with the second week. This is a light defense, or not a light defense, but a light secondary in Washington. I like Joe Burrow this week.
I'm going to go with Washington. It's going to be another close game. That defensive front improves every week. I think the offense does click this week. Gibson continued to play well. Alex Smith is getting back into his groove. Terry McLaurin against that defense, it's going to be a good test for Cincinnati. But I'm
Higgins as well on the other end for the.
He was one of the guys I would have been fine picking with the 21st pick, but we know how that all rolled out for.
I would love Justin Jefferson too, Zach, but we're not going to get in that today.
Not today. We will have a separate rant session for the Eagles general management. If you're interested in seeing that, make sure you subscribe so that you can get the notification for when we do rant at some point. But next game, which we do want to discuss as well, the New York Jets and the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm taking the Chargers. It's going to be closer than we want it to be, but I think that they get the win this week and the Jets continue to be winless.
Chargers easy, and Adam Gase should be fired this week, Zach. I'm going to keep calling for his job until it happens.
Well, you're going from the worst coach in the league to arguably the best coach in the league. The Miami Dolphins are going to Denver to play the Broncos. It's going to be in cold weather. Could that make a factor? I really don't think so at this level of the NFL. The Dolphins have played well this year. It's not going to be that hard for them to win. Defense forces 2 turnovers, and possibly they get a score off one.
Drew Lock, dark horse MVP, right, Zach?
That's correct. Unfortunately, so I made that claim.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm still rolling with Tua time. I'm day one of the show. I said Tua Tagovailoa, and guess what? He's 3-0 or 4-0. Zach, I'm rolling with this.
He's 3-0, yes. And if they win this week, they'll be 4-0. All right, the Dallas Cowboys go to Minnesota to play the Minnesota Vikings. Give me the Vikings in this one. Andy Dalton is back this week, but I don't think that makes that big of a difference for them.
Give me the Vikings this week, and Dalvin Cook has 150 plus yards rushing.
So he's going to continue with that tear. Packers going to Indianapolis to face the Colts. Give me the Colts in this one. Colts have controlled the line of scrimmage all year, and they've ran the ball down teams' throats. Green Bay can't stop the run. Give me the Colts.
This game could go either way, Zach, but the key is the run game of the Colts. You're right, and Green Bay can't stop it. But there's a guy in Indiana named Phil Rivers who one day looks like elite and one day looks like hot garbage. We saw what he did versus the Browns this year. He was giving
the difference is, can they run the ball? And if they can run the ball, then he looks better.
And if Jonathan Taylor can run the ball with Naheem Hines and the crew, I like the Packers this week. Zach, Aaron Rodgers almost lost last week. He's not going to get that close again.
No doubt. We'll have to see how that plays out. And finally here, we will do Monday night game on Monday, but the Chiefs and the Raiders, the only team that the Chiefs have lost to this year is Vegas. Gavin, who are you taking in this one?
I'm taking Raider Nation. Zach, this is the only team that gave Patrick Mahomes trouble. It actually put fear in Patrick Mahomes' eyes. Zach,
They beat him straight up.
They beat him and they ran the ball down their throats.
It was a win.
A win is a win, and Zach, they ran the ball down their throats. I expect them to do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Chiefs this week. I think that they are not going to let that happen again. They think the defense is a little more formed. The Raiders are a great team, so no disrespect to them, but I think the Chiefs do get it back. Just coming up here, I'm reading across the screen. We do have a little bit of breaking news. Stay tuned. A familiar face returning to Philadelphia, Jordan Howard has currently in the process of getting COVID-19 clearance, and he will be signed to the practice squad immediately following that. We don't know if he'll be activated for Sunday's game. Gavin, I know last night they were talking about a visit with him, but we are now getting confirmation that they expect to have him on the practice squad once he clears his coronavirus screenings. So, Gavin, what are some of your initial thoughts on hearing about number 24 returning to the Eagles?
Well, first of all, thank God she's coming back because you should have never got rid of him in the first place. Zach, we talked about, off the show, we talked about Corey Clement and we talked about Jordan Howard. The clear answer was Jordan Howard because he goes to Green Bay. And you were there personally for that. You saw it firsthand.
3 total touchdowns.
3 total touchdowns. He handled business by himself. Him and Miles Sanders like a dominant back-to-back duo. By the way, Jordan Howard's fresh this year. He only got 20 to 33 touches this year, so he should be fresh. But Zach, Corey Clement has not looked good ever since the Super Bowl run. And yes, injuries, ladies and gentlemen, I know, but it just hasn't been the same. So you should have never got rid of Jordan Howard in the first place. You should have kept him. I like this pickup. I don't know. It won't make a difference unless Doug Peterson runs the ball, but if Doug Peterson doesn't run the ball, it's just another guy in the backfield.
What kind of running back did we say before that the Eagles need?
Power back.
A bruiser. And Jordan Howard provided that last year. That's why he was so efficient in the red zone. Some of those key wins, the Bills game.
Garrett Blunt, too, in 2017.
Absolutely. Again, the Bills game last year. Big win. Right? And then you take a look at a game like Gavin, you mentioned, the Packers game. All right, this is going to be good for this Philadelphia Eagles team. I like this pickup. There's not much else you can really do right now because there's not any major names that you can really go out and get. Again, the trade deadline is over. That's going to be something that we're going to continue to monitor. But again, Jordan Howard returning to the Eagles. We're not sure if he'll be activated for Sunday's game. I'd say unlikely. We're still, honestly, we don't know if this game is going to happen. And for that specific reason is because the Eagles did have 3 guys on the COVID list right now. The Browns have 1 as well on their COVID list. We suspect that J.J. Arcega-Whiteside may have caught it from a Giants player despite being a healthy scratch last week because the Giants, Graham Gano, I believe, their kicker, I'm pretty sure, tested positive. So I don't know. I don't know how they got it. But, again, that is going to be something above our heads for a day or two. We're not going to know for sure if they're going to play, but we haven't heard anything, so I'm guessing that means that they're going to be playing.
Ladies and gentlemen, I find this ironic that, and Zach, I think I told you this off the show, that the first thing or the only thing that I seen J.J. Arcega-Whiteside catch was a virus. And I'm not
that's cold.
I'm not trying to make any joke out of this, but Zach,
it is true. It's something he is not. He's been a very inefficient receiver for this football team.
And just another wasted pick.
Bad selection of talent.
Just another wasted pick, huh, Zach? We could have had somebody else.
Could have DK Metcalf, for those who may or may not remember. Terry McLaurin was on the board. There was a lot. There's a lot to break down that we can talk about. But the one major thing that we're satisfied with is what the Sixers are doing right now. They're making moves. Speaking of that, free agency starts today. Coming up after this, we're going to talk about some of the expectations that we see to go down this weekend, bold takes, and then that will wrap up this week's edition of the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. Stay tuned.
Would you like to know how you can support the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show? If so, head down to the comments on our YouTube channel. You will see 2 links there. The first is our Teespring, where you can see a wide variety of apparel products, including our signature product, the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show sweatshirts, offered in a variety of different colors, including gray, navy blue, and more. Finally, we have our Patreon page, where you can become a monthly donation member. 10% of all donations go towards an organization of our viewers' choice. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and if you can't donate, that's okay, because you can always share this.
Welcome back here on the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. Some quiet things happened today. Gordon Hayward not going to be taking his player option with the Boston Celtics. He has become a free agent. That's number 1. Number 2, Enes Kanter going back to Portland from the Boston Celtics. Gavin, the Celtics, those are 2 losses that contributed their success last year. We know Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown were good. They're talking about shipping out Kemba Walker too a few days ago. I feel like, I don't know, we've been talking very high on Boston, but there's something right now going on there that we're not able to see right now, but could possibly lead to a potential downturn in this regular season.
Well, first off, don't ship out Kemba Walker because I actually enjoyed watching Kemba Walker play for that team. I thought it was a good fit. Kemba Walker is what they wanted Kyrie Irving to be there, but just passes the ball a little bit more and not really trying to force his shot. Ennis Cantor wasn't really big to their success last year, in my honest opinion. Zach, I kind of felt like he went missing. But the loss of Gordon Hayward, that might help. But that does give them a lot of money now, Zach. Remember, $34.9 million, give or take. That's free now. You can go out and go spend it on somebody else. You can go get somebody. Hell, you can even trade for somebody. I don't know what the plan is for Boston, because Danny Ainge is always cooking up something and always scheming on bringing somebody in. But you talked about Gordon Hayward becoming a free agency. Zach, Woj reported that Indiana is one of his destinations that he wants to go to.
I read that, and I also read the New York Knicks, Gavin. And why don't you might as well now? We had two guys that we could potentially see going to New York that could make that team an instant playoff team. Who else do you have going there?
Ladies and gentlemen, New York Knicks fans, listen. Get Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook, Gordon Hayward, and you got this young kid, Obi Toppin. I've been trying to learn his name, Zach. I still can't get it right. Obi Toppin, and then you got R.J. Barrett and some nice young pieces around there. I even know everybody else is kind of garbage. But you got a guy in Tom Thibodeau who loves defense. Russell Westbrook's not the worst defensive player, but he's sometimes underrated. Gordon Hayward, I know he gets beat defensively, but he kind of getting back to his old ways. Zach, Obi Toppin, you finally got yourself a Skywalker, as Stephen A. Smith stresses, in the open court. So if you gotta get yourself a star at some point, Zach. That's the thing. The New York Knicks are trying to do it without a star, and that's just not how it goes. There's only one team that was able to do it without a star, and that was, that was Brooklyn. That was across the bridge. They did it without a star. They put D'Angelo Russell in, and he goes down with injury. The next year he has a superstar or all-star season, and they went to the playoffs, and yeah, they lost the Sixers, but they did their rebuild correctly, and they had barely any picks.
Yeah, I mean New York. I don't know what's lingering. It's been years. I think that if you're not able to make, it's the end. It's the Eastern Conference. You should be able to make. You should be able to have a 3-year turnaround at most. And almost every team, you have Atlanta a few years ago who was in it, and now they're getting back into the conversation. And you got Brooklyn, of course, who has been in it. The Pistons were in it last year, not this year. Orlando was in it this year, but not last year. Almost every team at this point has made it. And so, I mean, another thing we do want to touch on here, and then we have one more topic to cover within free agency, and that's going to be expectations for the Sixers. Before that, the Tampa Bay Raptors. For those who don't know, Canada is not allowing the Raptors to begin the season in Toronto due to coronavirus restrictions, so they will be playing in Tampa. Gavin, what are some of your initial thoughts after hearing that?
It's actually going to be pretty exciting to watch. Zach, we emphasized this already. You live in Tampa. What a time to live there, especially if you're a sports fan. You got the Rays, even though Kevin Cash ruined that for you guys. You got the Buccaneers, and then you got your Lightning. And now you got this basketball team for I want to say a rental for maybe a
You
couple.
get to adopt them for a little bit. I guess you become a fan of them, and then they go back up.
Maybe you can even buy the team and move them there, because I know there's been talks that even though Canada is out of the country and it's kind of hard, exactly we saw with the baseball team for the Blue Jays. In a time like this where one country is open and the other country has stricter restrictions, it's hard for a baseball team that is associated with a U.S. organization to or any sport to just be associated with in their country. So I'm actually excited to see this. I probably won't make a big difference. I don't know if there's fans or not. But it's like it's a little awkward that you can allow a whole bubble, but not your own home teams.
Yeah, that was interesting with the NHL bubble. For those who aren't up to date on that, they had the entire NHL
In Toronto.
play up there.
In Toronto.
Toronto and
in
Edmonton.
Edmonton. Yeah.
So that was interesting.
You look. You don't want your home team there, and you bring in other teams. All right,
Bringing all the playoff teams for the hockey. But the final thing that we do want to go over today, Gavin, what is at least one move that you expect to see the 76ers make during free agency?
It's going to be between these three guys: Levine, Buddy Hield, or maybe Bradley Beal. Out of the two, I think it's going to be between more Hield and Levine, because Bradley Beal, I think they're trying to move John Wall more than Bradley Beal, but Bradley Beal is a better shooter than both of those two.
The offer would have to be very enticing. Another just quick note, Goran Dragic has re-signed with the Miami Heat. That is just one side note. And then, of course, the big news, Gavin. Will James Harden be a Rocket on Monday?
No, he would not.
And where will he be?
A part of me thinks he might be a Sixer. I don't think he will be a Brooklyn Net, though.
I don't think he won't be.
No.
We'll have to see how that plays out. Obviously, the
Because
Rockets,
if you lose
have
Joe
given up
Harris,
on trying to retain him, which means that him and Westbrook will be out. With that being said, everybody, that wraps up this week of the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. Gavin, anything else that you want to chime in on?
yeah, real quick, Trent, happy birthday. For those who may not know, a friend of the shows,
Good friend of the show, Trent, the Cowboys go-to Cowboys fan.
go-to Cowboys fan, and probably the biggest Sixers fan we have on here. So Trent,
Biggest Allen Iverson fan. Big Allen Iverson fan.
biggest there it is, biggest AI fan and T Mac guy. But Trent, happy birthday, buddy, and we'll see you next week because I know.
Happy birthday, man. We should have you on. We got a lot to continue to go over. For those who are currently watching on either Facebook or YouTube, make sure you like it. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us on this week of the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. We had a fun week and have a great weekend.
Have a great one. Wow.
Greek one. Have a Greek one.
Everybody, have a good one. Yeah, I'm used to saying have a good one, but have a great weekend, everybody.
Go Birds.
Hopefully.
If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. In addition, hit that bell icon and set it to all to get reminded of when we go live and when we post excerpts of our videos.